we're not going to do anything too fancy in this tutorial. We just want to try to plot information on top of a map. And so maybe one of the things we'd want to show is where are these cities located? And really, longitude and latitude are just X and Y values. And so if I wanted to plot where each one of these cities is, I could just treat the longitude as an X value and the latitude as a Y value. We know how to do that already. We can say import matplotlib.pyplot. We've used this before for plotting, and again, we don't want to have to type that every single time, so we're going to give it an alias plt. Then I could say housing.plot. I'm going to make a plot of the housing data. This is a little different than we've seen before. However, this is again just trying to introduce a new idea. So we're saying from the data frame housing, we want to make a plot. And then we can specify what kind. Our kind equals scatter. And now because we've specified that this is coming directly from housing, what we can do is just reference things by their name already without having to use what we've seen before. So I could say that the X value equals longitude and the Y value equals latitude. And then I could say plt.show. And let's see what this looks like. This ran an error because I said plot show instead of plt show. Then I hit go, run, and look at this. I have a bunch of cities, all given by dots. We have a high density of plots along here. And if you know what California looks like as a state, this kind of looks like California. Okay, what might be nice is instead of this shape that's stretched out and kind of looks like California, we could just show a map of California. And so what we have to realize, and the way we're going to do this, there are many ways to do this in Python, but because we're assuming that some people are going to be doing this online, then we can't have access to all the libraries that might make this simple. Instead, we're going to have to construct this ourselves, this map. And so what we do is that we find a map of California, we figure out what the longitude and latitude are for that map, and then we basically import that as an image here for the longitudes and latitudes that we have. So what do I mean? Well, I mean, if I had a map of California, maybe something that looks like this, what I could do is I could import that and use it as an image to plot our data on top of. So let's go ahead and do that. I can just click in my file system where I have my map and drag it into here so that I'll have access to it. And now what I can do is say that I need something that's going to handle images. So import matplotlib.pyplot. Oh, .image, sorry, we need to handle matplotlib.image as mpimg, matplotimage. This gives us part of the matplotlib library that can handle images. Then what we want to do is point it to the map that we have. So let's say California img for California image, that'll be our variable name, equals matplotimage, so the nickname we've given it, .imread. So we're going to read this camap.gpj or gpg, jpg for JPEG. This is a type of bitmap since we talked about that in lecture. Now we have, because of this, when we run it, we'll have read in this image here and we'll have access to it named California image. So then let's think about how we might make this. How about housing.plot kind equals scatter. And so we have the same thing that we typed in before. We could actually just copy and paste that if we wanted to. X equals, I'll just show off my terrible typing skills instead, longitude y equals latitude, and then end. This is what we would have drawn before if we look up here. Now before we show the plot, let's go ahead and show the image. So we could say PLT, so now we're dealing with this plot that we've just made, California image. That is our variable for the image that we have read in before. Extent tells it where do we think, how large do we think this image is? And what you would do is you would go into this map that we've already seen, and then you would try to figure out, since we're plotting longitude and latitude, we would go in and we would say, all right, how big is this? Maybe you could look at like Google Earth and figure out like where you think the edge of this is, all the way around in terms of the left and rightmost and the top and bottom most points. We won't worry about it too much. I've already gone in and done that, so we already have that here. And basically what I want to do is use a list to supply these extrema. So I'm going to give us the left and rightmost first points. So the leftmost point on this is minus 125. That is the longitude. The rightmost point ends up being 113.4. The bottommost point is 32.1, and then the topmost is 42.4. And so you can see that, you know, these are pretty close to what's already shown here, but these were automatically set from the data that we've plotted, which isn't directly connected to the map. And we'll see what I mean by this in just a moment. Now that we have imported this image, or told it that we wanted to show that image, we could just go ahead and say plt.show. And let's see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and hit run. Plot. Oh, I forgot to say plot.mshow. So we need to show this image. And there you have it. We now have the map drawn. If we wanted to have it appear differently, we could specify an alpha value. Alpha is what people use to specify like how dark or light this is. So let's say this was an alpha of 0. The map will now be completely transparent. If I had an alpha of 0.1, this map will be fairly dim. And if I have an alpha of 1, it'll be drawn as bold as it possibly can be. And there you have it. And now you can see that these cities basically fit within the map. The reason why the cities fit within California is because I've chosen this extent correctly. You can now see that this runs from minus 125 to minus 113.4, and then from 32.1 to 42.4. What would happen if I made the extent different? So what instead of 125, this was like 124? It wouldn't stretch far enough anymore. It would think that basically the edge of this, instead of being 125, is 124. And so if I plot this, you can see that now all the points are shifted off because I have set the map up incorrectly. So really, when we use mapping and spatial distributions like this, this is how it's always done, is that we're essentially having x and y values, which are the scatter points in this particular case. And then we're also saying we know where those x and y values are corresponding to on the map. And that's really it. We draw a map and then we put x, y values on top of it. And then what we can do is we can play around with how we display these x, y values in order to help people see what we're trying to show them. And that's something that we'll explore into the future. But let's just mention one thing for now, which is that we could do something like when we see all these points plotted together and we want to see them better, the same trick we did here for the map to make it light or dark is that we could set an alpha value associated with this as well. And so I would say those are my points, and maybe the alpha is 0.5. So it's going to be halfway transparent. And now when I plot this, you can start to see the points overlapping or not. But we'll explore this a little bit more moving forward.